What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today we're looking at a cool card that I think has some crazy potential, and that is Errant Street Artist. Now, Errant Street Artist is a 0/3 legendary human rogue for 1 blue, and it has Flash, Defender, and Haste. Now, those stats alone are pretty weird. Like, you don't see Flash on a 0/3 very often for 1. I mean, that alone is kind of worth the price of admission. Like, maybe not for a rare, but it's not bad. And then it has Defender and Haste. I love that because Haste is usually used for attackers and Defender says you can't attack. So here we are, Defender and Haste together at last. But there's an activated ability as well. For 1 and a blue, you can tap copy target spell you control that wasn't cast. You may choose new targets for the copy. Copying spells is very, very powerful. And if you are already copying spells, this allows you to copy spells again, like copy more spells. That's insane to me. I think this card is absolutely busted, which I've been saying a lot when it comes to new Capenna because I think there are a lot of very busted cards. I think there's a lot of really strong cards available. Now, copying spells is something that we've seen a ton in the past with, Magecraft triggers using things like Plumb the Forbidden or Show of Confidence that copy themselves. Like, that's something. We also have access to Dual Strike from Call Time, Teach by Example from Strixhaven, and of course the one and only Galvanic Iteration from Midnight Hunt. Those cards are absolutely fantastic and allow you to copy very big, very powerful spells. And so can you imagine hitting a Galvanic Iteration into something like an Invoke Calamity or an Invoke Despair? I mean, this is Magical Christmas Land, but I love living in Magical Christmas Land. Being able to copy and Invoke Despair 3 times because you have Errant Street Artist lying around, that's fantastic. The other cool thing about this is the trick potential. Because this has Flash and Haste, you can actually drop it for 1, pay 2, tap. If you have a viable target, you can then copy that spell. That's very good. Like, it's just good. Other notable cards that are going to be copying spells, Jin-Gitaxias is going to be copying artifacts, instants, and sorceries with no mana cost consideration. The new Jin-Gitaxias, that is, Progress Tyrant. That's going to be absolutely fabulous with this card because you can tee up very powerful turns once you've combined the 2 of them together. So that's great. Lithoform Engine is still in the format for kind of janky fun stuff that you can do because it allows you to copy activated abilities or spells, including permanent spells. It's very notable with Errant that you can copy any spell that you control that wasn't cast. It's very important to note the wasn't cast clause because that is the downside. If you have a permanent spell being copied, like a creature or an artifact, you can copy it with this. That's great. If you have an instant or sorcery, you can copy that too. Like, life is good. But there are many, many ways to cheat spells out without paying their mana cost that do count as casting. That's going to be very, very important to note. Like, if you use an Invoke Calamity, for example, it specifically says you may cast the card without paying its mana cost. Same is true with Tybalt's Trickery, which is why cards like Archon of Emeria work with Tybalt's Trickery, because it specifically says you may cast the spell that you flipped into without paying its mana cost, meaning you will not be able to make you will not be able to make cheap copies of those spells, which is the first thing I thought of, but that's not going to work. So that's important to note. There are very, very few cards that just put a spell on the stack aside from copy effects. I think that's really where you're going to see Errant shine. So Errant is going to be fantastic in cards where you're going to be copying stuff. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is also in a set where Casualty exists. Casualty copies spells, like, available, and that's the first and kind of most obvious way to do this. So again, Magical Christmas Land scenario, if Errant is on the field, if we have Errant on the field and we drop Ob Nixilis, if we have 5 mana lying around, we drop Ob Nixilis for 3, trigger the Casualty trigger, hit Errant, we then get another trigger. That's a combo that, I mean, granted, it's going to be unlikely, but that's a combo that's going to be available in Limited. And you're going to be able to get 3 Ob Nixilises on the field because it's all within one set. The chance of that ever happening in Limited, because it depends on a Mythic and a Rare, like, that's Magical Christmas Land for sure. But in a constructed deck, you could very easily make that happen. So we're looking at a situation where people are talking about going Jund with the Seeker's Chariot and Ob Nixilis. Also, if you want more thoughts on Ob Nixilis, please check out my last episode where I talked about Ob Nixilis at length. Or you can check out the spoilers over at the Pizza Box, where myself, Hollywood Pizza, and Hearsay TTV actually go over all the cards that have been spoiled. So please check that out. But in short, I think Errant Street Minion is very, very powerful. I think it checks all the boxes that I want in a fun, janky build around, while also providing a 0/3 flash body for 1. So against aggro decks, this is a great way to prevent some damage in the early game, in addition to setting up a cool interaction for the late game. I think Errant Street Minion is just very good. Now, it is fairly narrow. If you're not copying spells, it's not really doing much for you. So that's a bit of an issue. But you know, if you are going to be copying spells, the casualty mechanics around, there are plenty of other spell copying effects. The one thing that I'm very, very grateful for is we don't have a particularly great extra turn spell in the meta right now, because if this existed at the same time prior to the Alrund's Epiphany ban, because people were already galvanic iteration into Alrund's Epiphany. Could you imagine if they were able to do that again and tee up 3 turns and get 6 birds right on just from jump? Woof, that would be insane. I'm really glad that doesn't exist at this point. I don't know that Errant actually would have fit that deck because it was already pretty tight, but it's a fun thought experiment. This also works great with cards like Volo. So I mentioned Jin-Gitaxias as a card that creates copies just kind of incidentally without spending mana. So if you have mana lying around, you can do great things with that. Volo also, when you cast out creature spells, if the condition is met where it's the only creature of that type that you have on the battlefield, it'll create a copy right away. And so that's a situation where Errant can then create another copy. And so you can cast out 1 creature, pay an additional 2, and get 3 copies of that creature. You know, it's a 3-card combo that, you know, because you need to have Errant, you need to have Volo, and you need to have the mana, of course, and you need to have a creature worth copying. So it's not like that's not a slam dunk home run easy like include, but it's a fun janky deck that has some real crazy potential, and I like to see that. So Errant is the kind of card I like. I think it's very, very strong. It's also a human rogue. Those are 2 relevant creature types. Don't know if it's going to be relevant or not in these decks. And also with rogues, you generally want to be attacking, so the fact that they have defender is kind of an issue. But all in all, I think the card is very, very fun. I think we're going to see this in a lot of mono blue decks. We're going to see this in a lot of Izzet decks. I think this is going to make a splash in the Grixis deck alongside casualty cards, and I am excited to see what it can do. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button for more videos like it, as well as I host a variety of content on this channel, and card deep dives are one of them. I also do deck techs and beginner focused how-to videos on different keywords and rules within Magic. So if that's of any interest, please subscribe at Hamhawks42 on YouTube, and you can also catch me live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hamhawks42. I'd appreciate a follow over there as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next one.